town of Hull. For those of you who are not familiar with the area, a peninsula community where the Hull Lifesaving Museum is located, where some of the best people on the South Shore happen to live.
Yes.
And the island, named Slate Island, part of the Harbor Island State Park. Part of a Boston City hospital system. It wasn't until midnight tonight, I guess, and it will be another operation, have a new name. But it is the largest island in Boston Harbor. And again, the Long Island Hospital. And off on our right, just ahead of us and to the right, we see a lighthouse. That is Long Island Head Light. That was the second lighthouse to be built in Boston Harbor. And built first lighted back in 1819, located on top of what one time was known as Fort Strong in the Boston Harbor. And back during World War II, there was a submarine net that stretched across from Long Island Head or Fort Strong over to Deer Island to keep submarines from coming into the harbor.
Lighthouse builder Royal Luther of Malden, Mass. Was commissioned in the summer of 1902 to build a lighthouse on Gray's Ledge in Boston's outer harbor. The cutting of these granite blocks began in early 1903, and the actual work at the lighthouse site commenced on June 1st of that year. On September 1st, 1905, keeper Elight C. Haley climbed the lighthouse ladder to illuminate the most powerful beam in Massachusetts history. A 380,000 candle power with its first-order lens from Paris, Graves was named for Thomas Graves, a vice admiral of John Winthrop fleet and a resident of Lynn. The candle power at present is 1,400,000 candle power, and the characteristic is a double flash every 6 seconds. Graves Light was automated in 1975. Salem. When Salem Light was planned in 1833, it was to be located on a piece of land close to the old fort at Marblehead Neck. Congress appropriated $4,500 for the erection of the light and the adjacent buildings. The light was a small edifice which soon became a problem. Cottages were built all around it, and the mariners could not see the light. So, in 1833, a 100-foot mast was set up, on which the lightkeeper hung an auxiliary light. 12 years later, it was suggested that a new lighthouse tower be erected, and be high enough to clear all the houses in the vicinity. Finally finished in 1895, the cast iron pilings were 84 feet high, and were capped at the top by a lamp room and lantern, bringing in a total height above the ground to 105 feet, or 130 feet above the sea. Formerly white, and in 1933 red, the present light is now fixed green. The light was automated in 1960.
Okay, we have another strip of tickets for the carousel in Hull. And the winning number is 1420041.
Okay, my name is Norm Rogers. I'm a retired Chief Warrant Officer from the United States Coast Guard, one who has a great interest in lighthouses. I had command of Point Alderton Coast Guard Station for many years, and also I was commanding officer of a couple of Coast Guard lightships and the last commanding officer of the Boston lightship. So lighthouses are something that, to me, great interest. The history of lighthouses and the history of lighthouse keepers and the people that designed them and served on them is very interesting. And perhaps some of the interest comes from the fact that my mother's family were lighthouse keepers and lifesavers in Cape Cod back in the 18 and early part of this century. And I think we have something like today where we can take people to see what these lighthouses are and what they did over the years and tell them that some of the history of these places. It's rather interesting, and I'm happy to be able to do it for the Flying Santa program of the Lifesaving Museum, because it's something that a friend of mine, Edward Rowe Snow, is an old friend of mine from my high school days, did for, I don't know, 30 or 40 years, I guess, and then George Morgan took it over 10 or 12 years ago, and something that I think is it's interesting and it's a fun thing to do. And so I'm very happy to be able to come out and tell people some of the history of what we have here in the Mass Bay area and the Boston Harbor area. Oh, it's fun. I enjoy doing this, and even though it's not the best day in the world when we sit here, it didn't rain, so I think we had a pretty good day, and it's good to see. And some of these people, I've done 3 of these now, and some of these people have been here every time that I've done a lighthouse cruise. It's interesting that they come back every time. It's kind of fun.
How do you judge the turnout?
Good. Oh, this is, he's got a full boat here. I think they sell 250 tickets, and I think basically there's 250 people here, so it's good. I'm happy to see it. Yeah.
Well, it seems that everybody's enjoying it, and we look forward to seeing the Boston Light. That's the last one on the tour?
Yeah, we're going to talk about Boston Light, which is the oldest in the country, and it goes back to 1716. And unfortunately, what we're going to see is a lighthouse with like what I call a bag over it. They're sandblasting it to rehab it. But, you know, so I'm glad to see that happening. But I know I made a few calls to the Coast Guard over the last couple of weeks. Can we get the bag off the light, you know? And they said, well, but we can't do it. I can understand. They had a schedule and they had to do it. So, but I'm glad to see that the Coast Guard has basically taken Boston Light and said this light will be a Coast Guard manned lighthouse for many, many years. And they put a lot of money into it to restore it to its original condition, which makes me, and I'm sure all lighthouse aficionados, very happy to see that. Yeah.
Well, through the magic of television, we'll be able to show the lighthouse in its former condition. And
right, yeah. I said to somebody, we should put some posters on board, that this is what Boston Light looks like, But it's different. I mean, I'm seeing it. I see it every day out of my office and at the end of my street. So, I see it all the time, but it's kind of disappointing that some of these people who travel a long way won't get to see exactly what it looks like. But yep, come back next year and do it again, and it'll be all uncovered by then. Yeah.
Are some of these books and posters available at the Lifesaving Museum?
The Lifesaving Museum has a number of books on lighthouses, on life-saving service, and individual books. The gentleman named Harold Jennings from down on the Cape, who grew up on one of the lighthouses, I think on Lovells Island, where they had 3 lighthouses. And books like that are, very interesting. Just the story of it. There's another one on in 1924, there was a baby born on Boston Light. There was a storm. The Norwood family could not get the mother ashore to go to a hospital, and Georgia Norwood was born out on Boston Light, known as the Storm Child.
and there's books about her, you know, so there's a lot of interesting things that happened on lighthouses. So it's fun. I'm happy to be part of this. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll let you get back to the rest of the tour.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Serious. Excuse me. All right.
One of the most beautiful lighthouses, Hospital Point, was originally the site for smallpox patients, built in 1801. In 1812, it was turned into a barracks to billet troops. The original building was destroyed by fire in 1849. The land laid vacant for 20 years until a lighthouse tower was built. In 1916, the present light was lit-fired by oil vapors. The spire of the First Baptist Church was put online in 1927 to make a range light with Hospital Point light, and it was electrified. The light was automated in 1947. The Lightkeeper's home is now the home of the commander of the 1st Coast Guard District. The light has 12,000 candle power with a 3.5 order lens. It can be seen for 14 miles. Five miles out to sea from Salem stands Baker's Island. A daytime marker was first erected on July 28, 1791. Baker's Island Light was authorized by Congress 15 years later. No, 1796. The light was illuminated by Keeper Chapman on January 3, 1798. The Keeper's home was in the same building as the two lighthouse towers, which were at each end of the structure. In 1817, one of the lights was extinguished under the orders of the government. In 1820, after two costly shipwrecks, the second light was relit. When the smaller of the two lighthouses was declared inactive in 1916, a new and brighter beacon was placed on the higher tower. The present light has an alternating 300,000 candle power white and 70,000 candle power red flash every 15 seconds. The Eastern Point Light was established in 1882 and rebuilt in 1890. The light has candle power of 100,000 and gives a white flash every 5 seconds. The radio beacon operates with the assistance of a 150-foot tower in both fog and clear weather. A diaphragm horn giving 2 blasts every 20 seconds was an important function of the station. There is also a special radio direction finder calibration here at the Eastern Point Station. The Eastern Point Light was automated in 1986.
Hi, with George Morgan, the current Flying Santa. Now, is that a faux pas to give away that you are Santa, in fact?
Well, you ask any of the 1,000 kids I visit every year, they'll tell you who comes.
Well, tell us a lot about the history of Flying Santa and how you got to be where you are today.
Okay, capsulated it. The story was that in 1929, Captain Bill Winkapaw was flying out of Rockland, Maine, in a brand new startup airline delivering merchandise and supplies up and down the coast. He was coming back a couple of weeks before Christmas, flying over the Penobscot Bay when a northeaster blew up. And of course they didn't have the weather forecasting capabilities that are around today. And he soon found himself flying in a whiteout. He didn't know where the devil he was going. So he was kind of flying by the seat of his pants. He was pretty sure he was headed west, running low on fuel, and the plane was icing up. It was dropping lower and lower, and he happened to look down below, and he saw a glimmer of a light, and he banked around, and it was the Dice Head Lighthouse. So using that as a guide, he flew along the coast, finding the beams of 6 other lighthouses till he safely landed in Rockland. And upon landing, he pulled up in front of the hangar and ran out of fuel. So he was a very wise man, a very compassionate man, and he knew if it wasn't for the people that were manning those lighthouses at the time, that he would have gone in the drink. So a few days before Christmas, he reloaded up the plane, and he put together some Christmas packages that they wrapped, and they consisted of tobacco products and magazines and aspirins and chewing gum and crossword puzzles and things of that nature. And he retraced his flight out along the lighthouses with his son. And as he flew over each lighthouse, he got their attention by flying old and buzzing them. And as he flew over, he dropped out a couple of packages on the lawns. And that's how the tradition started. And the lighthouse keepers were so thrilled that somebody was paying attention to him that they latched on to him and they wouldn't let him stop. So he continued it for many a year. And in 1933, the author Edward Rose Snow from Marshfield here went along with him. And of course, that was right up Ed's alley. He was a lover of the sea and lighthouses and folklore and history. And in 1934, when Captain Wincapaw had an opportunity to go to Brazil to fly, Edward took over and filled in. And he continued that till 1979. He flew for 44 years with his wife and family. Captain Wincapaw came back in 37, and he shared the flights along with Mr. Snow, because now it had grown. They were doing 127 lights.
Wow, that's a lot.
So, and 1980, when the museum was first starting up, they were going to do a little small testimonial for Mr. Snow to honor him for his Flying Santa performances, for his writings about the history in the harbor, and for helping to save the harbor islands as we know them today. And when they investigated, they found out he was ill and he was not going to be able to continue his flights that year. So the people at the museum offered to step in that year and do them for him, because Mr. Snow was fully expected to recover. But alas, in 1981, he passed on. And I came on board in 1981, and they were looking for somebody to head the program up and to continue it. And I says, well, I don't know how good I'll be, but I'll try it. And here we are 16 years later, still flying and visiting all the lighthouses. We now do 27 lighthouses in 5 states, which is up about 10 lighthouses from 1986-87. Now that the Coast Guard has relit lighthouses and also put people back at them, because when they were all automated, a lot of them were abandoned to the elements and to the people that just really wanted to steal artifacts from them.
Right, you need people to maintain it and keep things looking shipshape.
So they've come a long way. They've turned a lot of them over to private industries and private foundations and private individuals. And we've somewhat expanded the role now of the Flying Santa to take in where there's no real lighthouse keepers per se, except on Boston Light. A lot of them are Coast Guard bases, and we always invite the whole aids and navigation team to bring their families out to the lights and celebrate. Some of them, like Knobsker, is a large base, and we invite them to bring all their families out there and participate. Some of them are museums, which we invite the people to bring their families and participate. And last year we flew to 27 lights in 5 states and passed out gifts to over 1,000 kids with their name on it.
Now, is there any way for our viewers to help with the upkeep of the Flying Santa and also with the Lifesaving Museum and the preservation of
Yes, there is.
lighthouses?
You know, if anybody's interested, they can call 925-LIFE. It's a 617 area code, and get some information of how they become a museum member. They can become a museum volunteer. It's a small museum. We're moving forward. It's always been a struggle, but we've made great leaps and bounds over the last few years. And there's always room for somebody to come aboard to help. This fundraiser today hopefully will raise enough funds to cover 18 hours of helicopter flights. And the helicopter flights where we used to get them for zip now cost us close to $575 per hour. So it takes a lot of money, and the whole program is run entirely by volunteers. There's nobody gets any pay or any monies except for the only monies that are received are monies out of personal pocket for expenses that are incurred that people run up. And it's a wonderful program. We hope to continue it on to the next century. If anybody out there is looking to have a potential job as a future Flying Santa, please have them contact us, because I can't do this forever.
Well, we appreciate the job you do, and thank you very much. And we're going to go back to see Boston Light now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Minot's Ledge is one of the most dangerous spots for ships in America. Shipwrecks were documented there in 1693. In 1847, it was decided to build a lighthouse on Minot's Ledge. The first light was an iron pile light, for it was believed that a stone tower could not be built on the exposed surface of the rock. The fundamental principle involved was to allow the sea to break through the tower without giving it too much resistance. The light was completed and lit on January 1st, 1850. On April 18th, 1851, a giant northeast storm raged from New York to Portland, Maine. As the storm raged and reached its fury that night, the waves were topping the lantern room at 60 feet high. The combined forces of the wind and the sea brought Great Minot's Ledge Lighthouse crashing into the sea. The keepers, each with a life preserver strapped to their backs, dropping into the boiling surf. Both their bodies were found washed ashore at Nantasket. Congress appropriated funds and bids were put for a new construction of the lighthouse. General Joseph Totten presented plans for a great stone tower to be built. The work was begun on June 20th, 1855. The first beam of light flashed from the new tower in 1860. The light was automated in 1947. America's first lighthouse was established on Little Brewster Island in Boston Harbor. It was first lit September 14, 1716. It was supplemented by cannon fire to serve as a fog signal. The American Revolutionary troops set fire to the tower to prevent its use by the British. The British rebuilt the tower only to blow it up on June of 1776. A new lighthouse was built after the American Revolution. That building is still in use today. Between the time it was built in 1939, when the Coast Guard took over all manned lighthouses, Boston Light was manned by a succession of 25 civilians. The first keepers were poorly paid and took the job only because they could supplement their incomes by acting as chief harbor master. The flash is now 1,800,000 candle power at Boston Light, the oldest and only manned lighthouse in America.